The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 15, East. Definitely a really crazy episode. Mostly the ending, of course, but the way they did the promo was very good because, of course, everyone knows it's like Daryl Carol, that's the big thing. And so they made it seem like Carol left, Daryl found out, and then he took off after her, and so a couple of people took off after him. And then this episode picks up, and that's not the case at all. These are just two totally separate stories. Daryl goes out on his own, Carol goes out on her own. So Carol has Rick and Morgan looking after her, trying to find out where she is. And then just the insanity that comes from Daryl leaving is Rosita going, Glenn going, and Michonne going. And we just have all these different people out, just, and things just go crazy. Like, we have an amazing scene with Carol, which I think is going to lead to probably one of the craziest moments from the comic books, which we haven't gotten just yet. It probably won't take place until the next season, I'm pretty sure. But it could take place because we have two more. But I kind of doubt it, because especially considering the ending. I don't think they're going to do this certain thing until the next season. But on her side of the fence, we have, I believe it was like maybe five, possibly six guys, three. I think it was like five guys in this truck. So she's driving along. In the hilarious car, it was really funny when they showed that the car she took had like just spikes sticking out of it. So I thought that was really funny. But I also didn't think those cars could drive at all. And I guess that was just one of the newer ones. And it's like, well, if we need it, it still works. But I would have thought they would have siphoned the gas out of all those things, stripped them for parts and everything. But it's like, nope, those things, at least that one, still worked. But, she's driving down the road with all these spikes sticking out. Of course, the guy shoot her car, she gets out. And, this is like a new version of Carol. This is like Carol who has become like Morgan. And she's freaking out. She has, this big jacket on, which I thought, she just took a jacket. And so she has this jacket which covers her sleeves. And, she's got these guys who are like, hey, we were going, to exactly where you're coming from anyway, which I thought was very interesting. And now that, I guess, four of those guys are dead and the last one survived and he's just off walking somewhere, that news might get back to people, which is exactly why I think that's going to lead to one of the really big moments from the comic books, specifically with so many people not being in Alexandria right now. And they have this crazy moment. She's freaking out. She doesn't want anything to, she doesn't want to keep killing people. And they come at her. And initially what I thought was, okay, there are people behind her. So, of course, those are the people that, shot the guys up. Because I figured she didn't have a weapon on her. And then she just lights this entire truck up with a machine gun. I love the way they did it. Because even when her hand was down, after she, pulled the trigger and everything, all you could see still was the sleeve around her hand and even the gun. And it's just like holes coming through. And I thought that was really cool. And also, I didn't know they had any like submachine guns, which I don't know if they did. I'm sure they had them somewhere and you just couldn't see them. But I thought that was interesting. Like, she has a really tiny machine gun based weapon. And it would have to be like a submachine gun, but it was also still in her sleeve. So I don't know what weapon that could have possibly been. But for the purpose of the scene, I kind of ignored that idea, and I was just like, that's really cool. It made no sense that the gun is so small, but it's an automatic weapon. But it was a cool scene, and she shoots these guys up. I think it was, I couldn't tell if it was three that made it initially. I think it was three separate guys, because the last guy, I guess, I don't know, I guess maybe there were just two, because I was a little confused during that point. So I guess the guy that walked out was the guy that initially made it, and she thought she shot him and killed him, but he didn't actually die. And then there's the guy on the ground, and she gets one up on him by like stabbing him, like, no, there were three guys, there were three totally separate guys, because she set up somebody from across the car, and then there was another dude, the guy who survived. So there were three people, and it was just crazy. Like, it was just really good. Like, she shoots it up. First guy gets out of the truck, chases her down. That's who she ends up stabbing. Then the other guy's behind the truck, who I believe is the very first person that talked to her. And so he's alive, and she's like, just come out. He's like, I don't think I'm going to do that. Like, I don't want to get killed right now. But of course, he's gone, and, he's wounded. But I'm assuming he bled out and died. And then the final guy's like, just let it go. And he just walks off in the woods, like, I got to get back to my people. And then we have the other side of the story where it's just sheer madness. Like, we have Dwight come back again for another episode, which I'm very curious if he's going to follow his story from the comic books, because the way they're doing it, it just doesn't seem so. They still, he was, I want to say he was involved in the moment I'm thinking of, the big thing that happened, that hasn't happened yet, or one of the big things that hasn't happened yet, but the way they're doing his character, I'm really curious, because just the reasoning for his face scarring, which I mentioned before, is different. So there are two aspects to that, though, but they could definitely do the other side of it, which of course I won't talk about in case they do that for people who haven't read the comics, but there's just another side of it where it's like, that could definitely be the case if they choose to go that route, but it doesn't seem too obvious at this point. It's just, oh, he left, which isn't the reason he got it at all in the comic books. So, well, I guess kind of it's a part of it, because it was stealing. And I shouldn't say that specifically because of the reason it's not good to say it was stealing, but it was just something that was deemed stealing, very degrading stuff just in general, but he wasn't supposed to do it. So I'm curious if they're going to have him follow his certain path as his comic book counterpart, and his rivalry with Daryl, which is very interesting because Daryl doesn't exist in the comics. It's really crazy, and then apparently that culminates in the end where, once again, they get the drop on them. The Saviors get the drop on everybody, too, because, Daryl's going out on his own, so we have Rosita, Michonne, and Glenn. They go after him, and then he takes off. He's like, you guys shouldn't have followed me. I can't stop. He takes off, and, Rosita's like, neither can I, so she follows behind him. Like, we do need to just kill these guys off. Like, they've, he's got, like, he's going to double down on hating Dwight because he helped the guy, and he just comes after him now. It's like, it's his nemesis at this point, and he tried to help him, and they stole his motorcycle, and all he's done is just try to, hurt him every time since then. And it's like, I was helping you. Basically, that's it. It was like, I was freaking helping you. And ever since then, when they interact, which has only been the last episode and this one, it's just, I tried to shoot you in the last episode, and I did shoot you by the end of this one. And he even said, the way they ended, it's like, holy crap, he just shot him. And, the way they did it was like, they even leave it on a little. It's like, you'll be alright. So, and plus, if you look back at it, he shot him, like, kind of upper chest area. So it could be like he turned around, because I'm trying to remember his position. So I think he let him turn a little. So basically, I think he shot him, like, in the shoulder, pretty much. So he's totally fine. He's not dead or anything like that. Because I know that's, of course, the way they did it. It's like, oh, blood splattered on the camera and everything. But he, like, just turned, and it was clear he shot him, like, in the side somewhere. So it had to be, like, basically, like, right here. So he's totally fine. Who knows whether or not he'll live or die, because that's been a big theory for a while now, that this would be his last season. Like, Daryl would get killed off this season, and maybe that's why they did that. I don't know where that theory came from, if that was just someone's like, maybe he'll live or die because of Dwight, where the big thing is that Dwight is the crossbow user in the comic. I think that may be a part of where that theory came from, like, oh, Daryl will lose his crossbow to Dwight, and Dwight will kill him off. Like, I can be the only one with a crossbow or something. So I don't know if that's where that started, but that has been a theory that's going around. And, I don't know. I doubt he'll die. They clearly did the shooting thing, but it's one of those things that's kind of obvious that they didn't kill him. And maybe it'll be the opposite of Glenn's thing. For me, I thought Glenn's thing was obvious that he wasn't dead. I know that surprised a ton of people, but I think this is really obvious that he didn't die, but they could switch it where maybe the Saviors don't help him and he does die from that. Maybe he just bleeds out because he, shot him, like, through the arm, and, he just messed him up and they just let him bleed out and die. So they could do something crazy like that, which would be an insane way to kill off a character. Like, if the bad guys, shot him once, and it's like, we're just going to let you bleed out, and he slowly dies throughout an episode. I kind of doubt they'll do that, but if they did, that would definitely go down in history for the show. Aside from the fact that it's just Daryl, which, as you've probably seen already, if Daryl dies, everyone riots. So, aside from the fact that it would be Daryl, that would be a crazy way to kill off a character, where they have, like, this insanely slow death from actually from bad guys, because we've had that before. with Tyrese, where he had a slow death after he was bitten. But this would be totally different, and it would basically be like torture if they did it that way. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Everybody's been captured. Glenn's been captured. Michonne's been captured. Now we have a wounded Daryl who's been captured, and Rosita's been captured as well. So I don't know what to really expect. I'm assuming we'll get to see the camp, the Savior's main camp, in this next episode, and then Negan shows up in the finale. So I'm curious how they're going to do it. We might, actually, now that I think about it, considering he shows up in the finale, we might get the big scene that I was thinking of from the comics. That might actually be the finale, now that I think about it. And that would be really cool. It'd be quite the finale. It'd be pretty crazy. But we'll see how that all turns out once the finale gets here. But as far as next week's episode, we have, 4 people captured, one of which is wounded. I would assume we're going to get to at least see the camp, and they could do it an easy way if Negan just wasn't at the camp, or maybe, who knows, because in the comics they had one camp anyway, and they've already established that that's not the case in the series. They have like the big telecommunication, satellite array tower, or building. I guess it wasn't a tower, but they had that building, and then clearly that's not the only base that they have. So that in itself says a lot. Like, that's totally different from the comics. They just had one giant compound, and that was it. And so they've changed things up, clearly. So they could easily take them to a secondary compound. They might have a third compound or something crazy like that, which I'd like to see, because even in the comics, they have huge numbers. And this way they could kind of hold the suspense on the exact amount and have them all spread out in a bunch of different buildings, which I think would be really cool, because it would make it like, all right, we took on this many people, and then here come this many people. It's like somehow we took on 40 guys, and then 80 people show up or something crazy, and then, they kind of spread it out that way, where we just don't know how many people that they're going to be dealing with. So that would be cool if they decide to go that route. Even if they didn't, they could just do it where they get taken to the compound, and then Negan just isn't there, and that's how they do it, where he shows up in the finale. Because, of course, if he's, if they go to the compound and he's there and he doesn't show up, it's just weird. So I'm going to assume that he's not going to be there if they take him, to a compound anyway, which I would assume they would, because he shot Daryl and he's like, oh, you'll be alright. I would like to think the only way that that could happen is if they got him some medical attention, and it didn't really look like they were just setting up to, open up a triage and start saving people. So I doubt that's going to be the case. I think they're going to be taken to the compound, and they're going to have to do some sort of crazy escape if they can. So maybe Daryl will die, maybe he won't. And then, of course, we have Morgan looking for Carol, and they already established the fact that the first compound was to the west and Carol went east, and yet she ran into those guys coming towards her. So wherever their camp is, it's out east, and Morgan may or may not be headed that way and running into this compound. And whoever that guy was at the barn, he mentions, oh, I was just looking for my horse. And Rick was going to totally annihilate that guy. And I understand where he's coming from, because it's like, it's got to be one of the people he came from over one of those hilltops. He's got to be, one of the saviors. But you just don't know. Like, even despite what they've done, I was on Morgan's side. Like, I know that they have to be super cautious, but it's not like it would make that much of a difference if the guy got away. He was clearly alone and freaking out because he didn't have a horse to get back. It was pretty evident he didn't have a gun either. When he, Rick points the gun at him, he's like, oh crap, and he tries to run in. So he clearly had nothing but he had armor on, which I thought was definitely interesting. So he could easily be a savior. But despite everything crazy that's happened, I sided with Morgan in this, and I was like, you just don't know. That would have just been a moment where it's like, that's a totally random guy. Easily could have been, but just totally random. I also wouldn't think that, because of the fact that every time we see the saviors, they've been together. And granted, he's only seen that in 2 situations, and we've seen it, in 4 at this point, with the initial introduction, this episode itself, with Dwight's group, as well as the last episode, the people in the car and the compound. So we've seen it 4 separate times, and this guy's just randomly by himself. And the only other time that happened was with Jesus, where, of course he wasn't with them. And he could be, like I said, just because he's alone doesn't exactly mean, clear evidence he's not with the Saviors, but it just seemed too weird. It's like they always travel in packs. They've got machine guns like crazy. They've got tons of weapons and, trucks and all sorts of gear. And it just seemed weird. Like, this guy's one dude on a horse. It just seemed really out of place. And it's like, I feel like he actually made the right call. And Rick was just kind of like, some guy, probably. And he was just going to kill this innocent dude. Who, like I said, we could easily be wrong. He may or may not be innocent. Based on everything we've seen, I am going with he's not with the Saviors. And we'll see. Once again, we'll see how all that plays out, who he is with. Because, I would assume he's not a guy from the hilltop because, they would have recognized him. So he's one of the Saviors, or, he is literally just this guy by himself. Or maybe with, like, a really small group. They might do it that way where, we get another small group, and we'll see, where that goes. Small group with, body armor, seemingly. But we'll just have to wait and see where that takes us. But I thought that was cool. Very interesting ending for that, that storyline as well. Because Morgan does stay out looking for Carol. And Rick heads back. I was really surprised that they even did that, where they actually split up. And, Morgan is just off on his own, so who knows what's going to happen with that. And he's looking for Carol, and she's somewhere. Like, she's, of course, way ahead of them. And I would assume that she made it past the barn. Maybe she's the one who stole the horse. That seems like the most likely situation. Maybe this guy was doing something outside of, like being away from the barn. Or maybe he was in the barn clearing it out. And that's when, she comes along. It's like, oh, well, he's in there. Here's a horse. And she just takes the horse and, leaves. But we'll see what happens. We only have, I think we have 3 episodes total. So I think there's still a lot that they can show us. Because I believe last week in the promo they mentioned, like, 3 more. I watched this online, so I didn't get to see the promo yet. But I believe, if I remember last week, it was like, 2 more episodes until the finale. So... or 3 more episodes until the finale. So we have 2 more until, I would assume. So that means we have 3. Unless I was wrong about last week's promo. But I'm excited for what we're getting. We're really close to the end. And then Fear the Walking Dead Season 2 starts up, which I'm really excited for. Because then we'll be back at the beginning of the outbreak and seeing how people survived and stuff. I still have to watch the airplane thing because I never saw like the first couple of episodes on it, so I don't watch it when it comes on, and I was surprised it kept going. I thought that was going to be over. I thought that was going to end when Fear the Walking Dead was over, and it's still going. Like, it still shows up like every commercial. I'm assuming it showed up this week as well, but I was like, crap, I really need to get to watching that because I never did, and I never watched like the really old web series they did either, and they did one for the girl from the very first episode of the series that was like split in half that crawls across the ground. And she has a name. I totally forgot her name, but they have a name for that character. And they did a web series for that character. I want to say they did another one around like season 2 or 3 or something like that. But I think the Flight, whatever it is, series is like the third web series that they've actually done. So I definitely want to check on all the web series, which I haven't looked at whatsoever yet. So I got to get on those. I'll probably do that. Well, I guess I can't say in the summer because I'll be watching Fear the Walking Dead. I'm assuming it'll have a longer season than just the 6 episodes. I think it was good enough ratings and everything, so they'll probably have a normal season. But we're close to the end. Crazy episode. We got people taken off. We got just a buttload of people captured. We did have also a good moment, probably something worth mentioning. We had a cool moment between Maggie and the girl's name I can never freaking remember. I always forget her name, but they had a pretty cool moment where, she helps her out early on, and then Maggie's like, I need a little help, and she cuts her hair short again, which we haven't seen in a super long time since season 2. I'm pretty sure she had at least shorter hair in season 2. And then, I don't know if I assume she's not going into labor because that's not that painful. Also, they could have easily known, like, oh, she's going into labor. So she's having some form of labor pains, and who knows what that means. Like, I just don't know. Like, there are a lot of different possibilities, but it wasn't just like, oh, she thinks she's going into labor and she's having, like, false contractions, which are Braxton Hicks contractions and stuff, which are fake contractions. It wasn't like that. Like, they put this tone in where it's like this high-pitched ringing, and she's in a buttload of pain, and she falls to the ground and stuff. And I thought for sure they were just going to go the route of we saw blood or something crazy and something was wrong with the baby or something. But they don't show that. We just see Maggie in a lot of pain, and then they kind of cut away, and so we don't know what happened there. So that's the third crazy thing, kind of just leaving off. And of course Glenn isn't there, so he may or may not miss the birth of his child if they do that by the end of the season, which I don't know. Something I heard last week, and it was actually at school, my teacher mentioned, she doesn't think that there could possibly be two babies in the show, because that's a bit too hopeful. And I don't know, that may or may not be true, because there aren't in the comic books. Like, Judith is gone really, really early. Like, Judith dies in the prison, you know, like where Lori died. They die at the exact same time, actually, in the comic books. And it's pretty messed up. And it's the governor, and it's just one bullet from one sniper rifle, shoots through Lori, kills her, and then hits the baby in her arms. Both of them are dead in that one shot. And that's when Rick and Carl are by themselves after that point. So, I don't know. That may or may not be true. I hope they don't do that. That would be nuts if they took that from the comics and made that happen. But I don't know. It could. It was a newborn baby. It wasn't any time or anything like that. She had the baby, and it was like, it had to have been like maybe 3 issues, if that. I read from the giant compendium, so I have no idea where issues started or ended. But they did not have a lot of time for that baby in the comic book. So they've definitely changed it up where there's a bit of hope. There's a young child, and now they'd have 2. And if they want to be insane, they could do that, but I highly doubt it because that was from so long ago. And plus, that would just be nuts to do that, because that was one of the darkest moments they had in the comics, where, you know, they killed off a baby and the mother that just gave birth. So I just feel like they won't do that from the comic books, especially not after all this time. But I don't know. They could if they wanted to. So we'll see how that plays out. They could change some stuff up. You know, because at this point they are kind of following it a little bit with Maggie, where she does have a child, and so that is in the comics. And as far as I know, everything's fine, but I am pretty far behind, so I really don't know as far as that goes. But I'm really looking forward to these next couple episodes. Of course, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and I definitely have to ask, what do you guys think we're going to see from our captured group? Because we have 4 people captured. Daryl's been shot. Dwight he really hates him. So, like I said, I think we're going to get to see the compound from their story. And then, you know, I would assume Morgan's story is still going to have a part in the next episode. Like I said, I didn't get to watch this on TV yet, so I haven't seen the promo yet. But I would assume we're going to get to see their compound. But I definitely want to know what you guys think we're going to be getting from this next episode. And of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.